Is it? Is it? Will I? Will I introduce a couple of important concepts? Okay. Hello, welcome to this new video, a kind of explorer series. A couple of videos in a row where we'll start to explore the principles of movement, if there are principles, but there should be. I will explain in detail the concepts I'm using, always in combination with a movement sequence. So this is going to be highly interesting if you're interested in movement in general, any kind of movement. It's also going to be interesting if you are looking for a new balance inside of you, if you want to increase your knowledge about movement, about yourself, about how you perceive yourself in movement. What can we feel? Why do we move the way we do? How do we learn about movement? How can we improve ourselves in movement? So to start, please come to lie onto your back in a supine position. So one of the reasons why we come to rest on our backs is that we don't have to be busy with standing or sitting, that we can free our nervous system, the brain, the thing that's inside here in the spine, from the burden of having to balance, to oppose ourselves against the pull of gravity. So when we lie down on the floor, we can fully focus on minute details we wouldn't be able to perceive if we still oppose gravity. So we totally surrender to gravity, and that's not an easy act actually, because when you have been standing or sitting for a long time, or even just a couple of minutes actually, and where's the scientific proof? But when you come to rest, there might be like residue tension you need for standing, but you don't need for resting. So that's why it's such a big change, like to fully come to rest. And maybe that's why it's so challenging to fully let go. And we have movements for this, so to make it easy. But let's start at the beginning in this Explorer series. As a first, so you're on your back, you can have your legs standing if that's more comfy. But then you're already busy with your hip joints, like balancing your legs. We don't want that, so maybe you could just put like a pillow underneath your knees or a pillow underneath your head. Just make yourself comfy so you can rest on the floor. And then, as a first movement, with your left hand, if you're right-handed, work with your left arm. If you're left-handed, work with your right arm, so the non-dominant hand, which is not as dexterous as your dominant hand. And it's easier to explore something like this with the hand that you're not so used to for manipulating and handling objects. So just lengthen your non-dominant arm. For me, it's the left one. You stack like the bones on top of each other so that you have like the least effort to hold your arms, that the arm is just standing. So sensible. It should make sense. Like it's not here. The arm should not be up and the arm should not be down and not to the outside and not crossing the midline, but simple mechanics. Where is the place where you have the least effort to hold your arm and your hand, the least effort to hold your hand, so don't spread your fingers like you're going to, waves, but just have your fingers relaxed and the wrist relaxed and the arm as relaxed as possible. And now observe, where does your palm point to? So this is already like a fairly neutral situation. Does your palm point downwards to your feet or more towards the midline? And if you would watch other people doing this, you will notice it's either downwards or towards the midline, or at best a little bit upwards, but not that much. Like nobody has the arm turned like this and is relaxed, or even the palm to the outside. It doesn't happen. There might be exceptions. We never know what kind of people are out there, but when we talk about a neutral arm position, neutral for the species, like the ideal neutral, or the personal neutral as opposed to the general neutral for the skeleton, the human skeleton, the general human skeleton, which probably doesn't exist because we all have a history. We are all born somewhere in a culture. We have parents. We have a childhood. We fall. We have injuries. We specialize in a couple of things. So everybody has little bit his own peculiarities, and that's how we can tell people apart from each other. By their character, by the things they do, the way they do it, the way they say it. So rest your arm a little bit, just to a release of the small tension you just needed for having your arm standing, and then after a short breath, bring your arm to stand again and rotate your arm a little bit. Rotate, like, but not for the sake of rotation along its axis, but to find something, to feel something. And what we want to feel, what I want you to explore is, where is the movement like really easy? Where is it like super easy to turn your arm? Where's the area where it's like so soft, so smooth? And then where is the area where it's a little bit more difficult? And then where do you have to exert effort? But we don't want to go there. Just we want to notice a little chart, a little Excel spreadsheet in our mind. Where is it easy? Where can you turn very easy? Where it's so nice to turn. It doesn't take you any effort at all. It's just like a little rotation to the inside and a little rotation to the outside. So where is your middle, so to speak, your center, your neutral? So it's not like a mathematical center between two extremes, but it's like your personal neutral where movement is easy and where you would hold your arm in the most relaxed fashion and still be holding it. So be a bit busy with this kind of exploration until you find that space, that personal neutrals, and then see where is your hand oriented. Could be a little bit downwards, could be a little bit towards the midline. We'll talk more about this in a minute. Now bring down your arm to rest, and then we need to come to sit again. So please come to sit. You can sit in a chair, you can sit on the floor, wherever it's comfy enough to sit. Alright, so you sit in a fairly symmetrical fashion, and then hold your upper left arm, if you have been working with the left arm, otherwise right, on your side, so that your elbow touches your side and your lower arm just sticks out like a balcony. So your lower arm is forward, so this is like this. This is our start position for this movement. And then what's going to happen next? Next, turn your lower arm, this time only your lower arm, around its axis. This same kind of rotational movement. So you're rotating your lower arm. And here you also can feel like where it's easy to rotate it and where it starts to be a little bit more difficult. And sometimes your fingers are hanging down, and when you rotate it, sometimes your palm is facing up. And also here, take your time to do that. You can close your eyes if you like, just to experience in your sensation and in your feeling this kind of rotation of your lower arm. And observe what let your hand be loose. So this is kind of a skill we can develop, which is not that easy actually, just to be able to let go of the left hand. It's not like giving the hand to somebody else, it's still your hand. It's just like you don't do much anymore with your left hand, it's just there. It's attached to the lower arm, and the lower arm is rotating. So, and you could think like when the fingers are downwards, it's like water, like a small little waterfall where the water is dripping off, and when you rotate your lower arm, so the hand position starts to change. And the fingers, what do the fingers do? The fingers curl up. The fingers curl up when the palm is oriented towards the ceiling, and once you turn your lower arm, the fingers start to open. And they order themselves if you do this for a while. You can start to feel gravity, the pull of gravity on the hand. There's something like gravity. That's why we're not floating up into space. And also feel where the movement stops, where you can't go any further. And yes, see, that's another principle. Our nervous system can be divided into two parts, like a very active part. We could call this the sympathetic part of the nervous system, which is responsible for fight or flight. Very active. So this is where we practice sports, fast movement, parkour running, tricks, backflips, all these kind of things. And then we have the other part of the nervous system, the parasympathetic part, which would be more attributed to rest and digest. Like, this is the kind of feeling you have after a really good meal. You're very satisfied and there's nothing else to do, to just enjoy and be satisfied. And this is the kind of state we use or we're getting into in this kind of lessons for learning and exploring. So this is maybe different to other movement methods where you're more active. Here you're more in a rest and digest type of state. So please leave that and come to rest onto your back again. So there we have this word again, to rest on your back. Please lie down again. And compare the feeling in your left arm to your right arm. How your left arm is resting and your right arm is resting. And then again, orient your left arm towards the ceiling. and see where is your neutral, your personal neutral. Maybe it's a little bit down, maybe it's, so it's easy for us to orient the palm towards the midline. And that makes sense actually, because we humans are very good at manipulating objects, at taking things and putting it somewhere else, or putting, like, observing things with our fingers. And that's why it's easy to orient the palm towards the midline. And maybe that's like a neutral for our species, but of course we have a history. So maybe some, like when we lean against something, the palms are oriented more downwards. When we do push-ups, when we push open a door, something like this, so that's a function we use often to push objects, so which would orient the, like, create a structure where the palms are oriented downwards. So again, let's do the next step. Reach with your left arm a little bit more towards the ceiling. So you can't have a too soft cushion for this. Lengthen your arm, like lift your arm, your left hand towards the ceiling, so that this goes up and down. So your shoulder blade leaves the floor. Shoulder blade leaves the floor, and hand comes closer to the ceiling, and then the shoulder blade drops down again. So your clavicle, the outside part of your clavicle, lifts and comes down again. And do this a couple of times, maybe a little bit faster. It's like a broomstick hammering against the floor. Can you see that image? You have a broomstick pushing against the floor, so it's your shoulder blade, a certain part of your shoulder blade, hitting the floor, lifting the arm, and then letting it fall down again, and then take a rest. So if this movement is a little bit new to you, we need a rest just to integrate it, have a little bit time to feel the after effect of this movement, and then again lift your arm and lengthen it again towards the ceiling. Slowly, slowly reach up, and there's a question. While you lengthen your arms, your left arm towards the ceiling, what happens with your head? If you really follow the movement, when you close your eyes and you follow the movement, you reach up, the shoulder blade moves around your chest, lifts off the floor, your clavicle, the outside part of your clavicle lifts, and what happens? So we call this a kinematic linkage. So the clavicle will move actually your manubrium and the sternum, so your chest bone, which in turn will turn your chest a little bit. If it's your left arm, will turn your chest a little bit to the right. And if you carefully sense this movement, you will feel that your head might have a tendency to roll to the right. To roll to the right. So when you reach up with your arm, and this is not a conscious effort, but a kinematic linkage, where the movement, you could feel like a skeleton, or you could feel like somebody is actually pulling on your arm, and if you were a skeleton with no nervous system and no muscles and no heart and blood and history and nothing, your head would roll to the right. Is that correct? Can you feel that? And if it doesn't, so we have another concept. We discovered another concept which is called parasitic effort. So Moshe Feldenkrais, he was an engineer, and he was referring to the parasitic currents on a PCB, in electronics, where there's currents flowing where we don't want them to flow. So this is like an effort. If your head doesn't roll to the right, try to prevent this movement. Do not let your head roll to the right. While you lift up your arm, keep looking at the ceiling. So this effort in your neck, when you try to prevent what can you do? How can you prevent the head from rolling? So there's many things you could do. For example, squeeze your eyes and keep your eyes towards the ceiling, or hold your breath, or clench your jaw, or tighten your belly. So these are many things you can do, or which might actually happen to prevent your head from rolling. So these are just a couple of movements. Finding neutral, and then in sitting, rolling the lower arm, and then in lying again, lifting the arm, and then lifting the arm and feel the head roll. You can practice this on your own terms. I invite you to practice these things when you're just with yourself on your own, these couple of movements, and really feel the kinematic linkage, and if you have effort in your neck that you actually don't need for this movement. And this can make a huge difference. And when you practice on your own, you might discover more than just like with this fast little video, because we could do this for an hour in a live class and discuss it and do partner work. But if you're on your own, just engage into this concept: kinematic linkage, parasitic effort. And of course, before we lie down, to free ourselves from the burden of gravity, and then start to oppose gravity by lifting the arm. So, yeah, somatic education. It's a very rich beginning of a little series I have in my mind, and we will use this concept, we will build on this concept in every lesson. So it's interesting for a healthy person, but it might be life-changing for somebody who has just had a stroke. To recover functions like this, like reaching and feeling kinematic linkage and connections throughout the body, and how to prevent movement and how to allow movement, these are things we need to restore function on one hand, if somebody lost function, but on the other hand, it's a never-ending improvement. Like Moshe Feldenkrais asked, like, who was the greatest painter? Who was the greatest musician? And will there never be a greater one, or more newer music, interesting pieces of art? And that's, you see, we humans, we have a tendency to develop and create, and also in the way we move, how we perceive ourselves, there's no limit to improvement. And that's why it feels so nice. And does it feel nice? So please come up to stand to check how your shoulder is now. How you feel. If the arm you worked with is different than the other arm. Let's have a look. See. Please come up to stand. And in standing, maybe you can close your eyes. Just stand for yourself. Where do you position your head? And feel your left arm hanging as opposed to your right arm. Maybe you have a mirror. Maybe you can perceive a difference in the sides. For some people it's almost dramatic, the difference, like really visible. For other people it's more subtle. As I said, for some people it can be life-changing. For some it's like, that's interesting. And for some it's like, so what? So we have this whole range, this spectrum of, but I try to give you some of the concepts, so to feed not only your body but also your mind, your feelings, your sensation. Okay, so let's see, how was it? Does this make sense, this kind of, this way of teaching? Is it much different from my previous movements? I'm interested to see this video myself, how it turns out. So thank you very much for watching, for participating. If you liked the video, please like it, leave a comment to share something with me and other viewers, and see you in the next video.